Welcome to our spring quarter. This is the quarter where we're always, well, I will own it, just speak for myself. This is the quarter where I'm like, oh my God, all those things that I said I needed to do this academic year haven't been done, and now I only have 3 months to get them done. I'm sure that many of you share that same level of anxiety. So today is a campus update. For those of you who are new, we alternate with an update where we bring people to give updates on what's happening on campus, and then the next month will be engagement around a substantive issue. So this week will be, this month is an update. We will do something different this time because we've gotten some questions ahead of time that are a little sensitive, so we are not going to record the Q&A portion. You all know that these are recorded and live streamed, and we are not going to do that because we've got some sensitive questions from people, and we want to make sure that we are sensitive to who is asking those questions and what the answers are, especially around some of our federal immigration activity. So we don't want that on film. So we will make sure that as we send out the summary of the meeting, we follow this meeting with a summary that goes out a few days later, that if anything comes up that we can say, we will include that in the things that you need to know from the update. So those of you who may be watching from your offices, just know that we are trying to balance being transparent and being open with also making sure that we are not putting people at risk. So, as usual, we start with our land acknowledgement. We recognize that all of us at UW Tacoma learn, live, and work on or near the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people. In particular, we're situated on the traditional territory of the Puyallup tribe. As people on this occupied territory, we have a responsibility to acknowledge the land, the ancestors who have cared for this land since time immemorial, and all of our indigenous connections today. We also have a responsibility to acknowledge the history of dispossession and forced removal that have allowed for the growth and survival of this university. In light of that history, we take active efforts to partner with our indigenous community members and neighbors as we can continue our work together as a community of learners, leaders, and educators. And we always try and make that real, otherwise it's just a bunch of words. And I don't see them, but I want to acknowledge and thank Leander Yazzie, who is our tribal liaison, and Vanessa Vertich, I always butcher her name. Woodside, you all know Vanessa from Global Affairs. I should have written it down because I do butcher it even when I'm looking at it, and I'm sorry, Vanessa. But I want to thank them because, and Danica Stewart Miller, because we started the class that is associated with a grant that we got from the State Department to have an Indigenous global study abroad program where our students would take a class all this quarter and then they will go and study at UBC in the summer. And we were concerned with all that is happening with the federal government that we might not be able to continue that program because the funding has been put on hold. But Vanessa and Leander and Danica have been really creative in trying to figure out how we can continue forward with this program without the funding, and they have figured out a way to make it happen. So our students are going to get that experience, continue in the classroom, but also have that experience in the summer. So I'm very excited about that. Great. Okay, I guess that leads me right to the federal policy update. I'm not even sure we should record this because half of what I'm going to say is not probably not politically correct. You all know that we have gotten just a ton of executive orders coming out of this administration related to immigration, to DEI, to federal research funding, just a ton of things that the proposed abolishment of the Department of Education. All of those are things that are impacting us. And we have not to date, oh no, did we get our first one? We have not to date got a stop work order. We got one. I was thinking, yes, we did just get one last week. So we have a team that gets together that includes the leads from those areas, DEI, student affairs, I'm Cheryl from research, all of the deans. We're monitoring what is happening on a weekly basis and trying to figure out how we can adjust as necessary. I think I sent out a message last week about this, that there's so much uncertainty because of these federal executive orders. The University of Washington is a partner in numerous lawsuits. In some ways, I think that this is the strategy is to bankrupt the universities because we're filing so many lawsuits, filing lawsuits around what's happening with our research funding, what's happening with all of the mass deportations. We're engaged in them. We are talking to our Big Ten colleagues. They are considering a higher ed coalition to try and come together, because a lot of this is really threatening the very fabric of what it means to be a public research university. Including the intimidation things that have happened at Columbia and Princeton and Harvard, where they are taking funding away, and Maine. So it's continuing to happen as a way to encroach on academic freedom and really dictate what universities do. So AAUP, I know, is engaged in a lawsuit on this, and we have partnered nationally with the AAUP and APLU, and all of the alphabet higher education organizations are engaging in conversation and lawsuits to address some of these issues. I think the thing for us that we have a lot of concern for what's happening with our international students, a lot of concern what's happening with our international scholars, with our students who are in mixed status families, with our students who are on Pell Grants. we're so proud, and yet at a time like this, it's troubling. We are the largest, percentage-wise, the largest recipient of Pell Grants. So 50% of our students get Pell Grant, and that's at the wording that we're getting out of DC is that federal financial aid is not going to be impacted, but we're seeing mass layoffs in the people who administer this. So it's hard to see how it wouldn't be impacted. So far, we haven't seen, we've seen some websites go down with the FAFSA that are supposedly not connected to the changes at the Department of Education. But so far, financial aid is continuing to go forward, but we are very concerned about what this might mean for our students. We continue to have guidance coming out of the executive office. So the provost has a website, and we continue to direct people there because that website has the most up-to-date information. For example, when the letter came from that the University of Washington was being investigated, it didn't come to Bothell and Tacoma, it went to Seattle. So that website has the most up-to-date information. It has the most up-to-date guidance from the Attorney General, and we'll continue to work with HR. So we'll continue to work with our Seattle colleagues to make sure that anything that we get is also included in there, but we're directing people to that one website rather than trying to create our own. So in the context of the federal budget, if you all saw the message from the President and Provost last week, it created a lot of anxiety for people about what is going on. And I will say that Seattle's financial dependence on federal funding is much larger than ours. We have departments and schools and colleges on the Seattle campus who more than half of their budget comes from federal grants. We don't have that. We do have $12 million here. We are concerned that if we lose it, what that might mean for people, but we don't have whole academic departments depending on federal funding. We do have one unit that is funded totally by ICR, indirect cost recovery, and so that's our research unit. And so we are concerned about that, but we don't have large numbers of graduate students and faculty and staff on research budgets. We do have a few, and we're monitoring, we know who they are, and so we're continuing to monitor that. On top of the federal issue is what's happening with our state budget. So while we are concerned about the federal budget here at Tacoma because we do have that $12 million, we are in the same sort of boat with Seattle and Bothell relative to the state budget. And you all know that our state is experiencing a deficit. I want to take this moment to introduce and welcome Courtney Akoff, who many of you may know because she was a student here and she was engaged with our alumni council, but she is our interim director of government relations and started just a couple weeks ago in the middle of our state legislative session. So Courtney, did you want to?
It's up here already. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to be with you. Give me some grace. This is my first meeting with such a large crowd. So I'm honored to be here. As Chancellor Lang shared, I am a UW alumni, and this is just a blessing to be back a part of this campus. Feels very nostalgic to be here, but I'm honored to do this work with you all, and I look forward to meeting you all. So I'm just going to give you a brief overview of some work that we've done over the last couple of weeks. Chancellor Lang and I went to Olympia and met with some legislators mid-March. Our focus obviously was to share the impacts that our campus has and not at the UW Seattle as a whole. But we wanted to talk to legislators about how important the budget was and the impacts that it will have on our students. So we wanted to just make sure that we addressed how uniquely our student population is. As Chancellor shared, 50% of our students are depending on the Pell Grant, and I know that the Washington College Grant is something that is not a part of the budget, and so we're going to be meeting with the legislators just to share with them how important this funding is for our students so that we can try to get some money for our students. The student support services was one of our priorities, and it is something that we are going to continue to advocate for. We're trying to get some meetings on the schedule now with some of our legislators just to see what we can do to get that proviso back into the budget. But as Chancellor said, we are in a budget deficit, and so there's going to be impact. We will feel it one way or another. Right now, legislators are discussing kind of behind the scenes and negotiating different ways to cut things, add things, and we won't know until probably later today. But we're watching very closely, and we'll keep an eye on the budget as it continues to be reconciled. And if you guys have questions, feel free to contact me, but it's really uncertain, and we don't have all the answers, so we're watching very closely. We are going to Olympia on the 21st to meet with some of our ASUWT students. There is some presence on Olympia for students who are advocating for us, and then we've met with Senator Claire Wilson, Steve Conway, Rep. Addison Richards, just to talk about some of our impacts here at campus. And President Koss is going to meet with Ferguson on the 10th. So this Thursday, she'll be meeting with him to share about some of our priorities as a whole. So more details to come on that. Thank you.
Well, as Courtney said, the state budget is definitely work in progress. There are multiple proposals for higher education, and most of them include some form of reduction, but the most significant reduction that's under consideration right now is a 3% reduction. So there are lots of different things that must happen. We're projecting that we are probably going to have a special session to get to a state budget, and part of that is just because the proposals are so far apart, and the governor is so far apart from the House and Senate. And frankly, there aren't a lot of people down Olympia right now who have had experience operating and putting together a budget under deficit conditions. And so we're seeing that happen right now. I wanted to have Cherie and Sheree, Sylvia said not her, give us give us the numbers on the budget.
Good. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sheree Berthon, Associate Vice Chancellor for Fiscal Planning and Budget. It's good to meet you if I haven't already. And I'll walk through some of the details, which sort of the key points that we see right now in the legislative budgets. We have a Senate budget and a House budget that have passed off their chamber floors. And as you know, the legislature's heading into what they call reconciliation and a period of trying to come together on a final budget. But what you see at the beginning is always a good indication of what's going to be there in the end. So to talk about some of the key points in the Senate budget, there is a 1% across the board cut to higher ed, and that would equate on an annual basis if the university as a whole approaches our reduction as equivalent. Our state allocation right now from Seattle from the legislature is $31 million. That's not including our proviso funds. It's just our lump of state funds that we receive from the legislature passed through from Seattle. If there a 1% cut to that would equate to about $310,000 per year. House has larger cuts to higher ed, closer to 2% or a little over 2%. So we're seeing a higher cut that would have a bigger impact on us annually, and could impact programs and expenditures, of course. There is in the House budget also a cut to our engineering proviso and the Seattle's engineering proviso. But for us, the dollar amount is the same, $600 to us, $600 to the Seattle program. Seattle program is much larger, so it is not an equitable cut by any stretch. But the hope is that that will get negotiated out. And for us overall, the Senate budget does look better. And so I know folks like Courtney will be talking with legislators over the next several weeks, and of course, Seattle State Relations team will as well. Tuition and compensation are really important areas of the budget. We have talked a lot about the way that the legislature does not fully fund the salary increases that they grant us. So they'll allow us to give 3%, but they'll only fund, say, in the most recent years, 60% of the cost. So 40% has to come from our tuition revenue. That is that can work when our enrollment is growing and when tuition is growing at a high enough percentage, but neither of those have been the case the last several years. So it's meant having to reorganize, reallocate funds to provide pay raises. So this year, the University of Washington's highest priority was 100% full funding of pay increases by the legislature. Seattle struggles with the same thing. Unfortunately, we went backwards a little bit in the House and Senate budget, where they're only providing 43% of the cost of increases, and 57% would be shifted onto tuition. That's in the Senate. However, they are proposing a significant tuition increase in the second year of the biennium. They're proposing to add 5% to the current roughly 3.3%. And adding 5% in the second year would take our tuition rate up about over 8%. We know many of our students are more sensitive, so that could may have a positive revenue impact at the individual level of enrollees. But if fewer students can attend because they can't afford to, so that's a risk that we're very aware of. But essentially what the Senate has said is the University of Washington can maintain or retain 2% of that 5% to cover compensation costs that weren't covered in the 43%. I don't have a magic calculator to know if that will cover us. I think we'll work with, as we see what comes out of the legislature, we'll see what our colleagues in Seattle are seeing in the numbers, but that is at least some hope that we wouldn't have to cut in order to provide pay increases. And then there also is an additional reduction in the Senate budget that comes the same year that tuition goes up, where they take 3% of that 5% back, and that's $18.6 million. So that is one of the things they did in the last recession, was to cut our higher ed's funding but increase tuition and sort of provide some relief to their budget situation through tuition. And it does very directly shift the burden onto students. But it is one of the areas of the budget that's more flexible for legislators, unlike K-12, unlike some of the entitlement programs. If you are interested in really getting into the details, I have a link here that provides a 9-page summary of the House and Senate budget, and that's been compiled by FPB. It's very detailed and very thorough. And as was mentioned, there's a compromise that we'll see coming up, hopefully not too long. As was mentioned before, there's a lot of sense that we could end up in a special session, which will actually, I think I'll go ahead one. Joe added where we are in this. This is the budget timeline for our entire process this year. And you are here in April. And typically the legislature would finalize its budget around the end of April. And yet if it goes into special session, it could extend until May or even June. What I will say that leaves me a little bit optimistic is the longer the legislature stays, the worse the federal problems get. And there is a lot of pressure and incentive on them to get this resolved and go home. But at this point, there is still a lot of speculation that we could have a special session, especially now that Governor Ferguson has come out and put a lot of doubt on whether he would sign some of the new revenue proposals that are part of these budgets. But going back to, I'm sorry. How do I go back? Thank you. All right, great. This is just to line up a few things so you can see. Unfortunately, the first column were some of the requests that University of Washington made. That $40 million for the behavioral health teaching facility was actually something the legislature's already committed to. So it really isn't a new funding thing. It's just the time has come where they should give us what they said they would. Even then, the House is not proposing to fund that full obligation. Tri-campus student support services, that's where that funding is that Courtney just spoke about. Our funds to support student services. Currently, it's not in the House or Senate budget, but I know things can change, and I think students and former students are some of the most powerful voices with legislators. They really would much rather meet with someone who actually has lived experience than with a lobbyist. So I am encouraged that Courtney's part of our team and excited that she's going to talk with legislators about how important those funds are. We also had a request for a nursing program expansion here on this campus that is part of this tri-campus nursing package, but those dollars were not included either. You can see here the reductions. Originally, Governor Inslee's budget had a very modest reduction. It was less than 1%. The Senate's $9 million equates to about 1% of our total state. And finally, the House is closer to $20 million in reductions. And then the House makes some more targeted reductions to clean energy provisos, to, as I mentioned before, the 2 engineering provisos. And I will say, I just noticed that the House in the capital budget tries to give back some of that clean energy money through a capital appropriation. I don't know, that likely wouldn't come to Tacoma anyway. It's tied more to Seattle efforts, but just so you know, it's there. Wage increases. At this point, the budget is projecting 3% wage increases for next year for all employees in general. Of course, there's a little bit of variation, but when you look at all employees as a whole, 3% is the target, and then targeting 2% for the following fiscal year. But to talk about that percentage of funding, you can really see it very clearly when the UW requested 3% actually I think we requested 3 and 3, but roughly, we requested $67 million to cover 100% of our costs. What we received in Governor Inslee's budget was $37 million, 36.9, which is about 60%. And then we see an even bigger drop in the Senate and the House of receiving only $27 million for the costs of wage increases. So again, it's putting more cost onto tuition and less cost coming from the legislature. And then just a quick summary at the bottom of the tuition rate changes. We haven't got 100% certainty on what the tuition rate will be in fiscal year 27 or the second year. We know next year it's Under policy, it'll be 3.3%. In the second year, the Senate would have it jump to 8.3 thereabouts, and the House leaves the policy untouched. So do you want to wait later for questions? Okay, we'll wait but happy to answer questions later.
Okay, campus master plan. You've heard us talking about the campus master plan for the last, seems like 5 years, but the last year. And we are almost there. The draft plan is on the Chancellor's website, so you can go look at it and read all 216 pages of it. It's very comprehensive, but in this room next Wednesday, we'll be holding kind of an open house and have the different pieces of the plan around. You'll be able to come give feedback. There will be a lot of sticky notes involved. So I encourage you to come during that time window, 11:30 to 1:30. Stop by, talk with us, give us feedback, because we're going to be rolling all of this into the final plan, which should be done in about a month. We met last week with the City of Tacoma, the Tacoma City Council, for a study session. That went very well. There have been a couple of other meetings with the Puyallup Tribe and with the Downtown Tacoma Partnership. Getting out and talking to people about the plan and what it will mean, how it will be implemented, how it's not necessarily a design, it's a framework for how we're going to grow on this campus up to Tacoma Avenue. So I encourage you, though, to, if you haven't yet, go take a look at it. So.
Oh, that's it? Well, I guess that's what I'm doing today. I'm super excited to get to talk to you guys about something fun, and I'm sorry that Abby's not here, because I know you guys love listening to her talk about the Gallup Survey and all the work that she is doing in human resources. But so I'm punting for her this afternoon, but I'm excited I didn't have to give the budget update, so we'll go with that. I just wanted to thank everyone for their participation in the Gallup Survey. We had 58%, which was a really fantastic percentage for our populations here on campus. Way to go, classified staff with 62%, pro staff with 82%, and academic personnel with 45%. So we are really excited that we had 503 individuals participate in this, and we are even more excited that this is something we plan on institutionalizing and looking at every other year, and then developing objectives and feedback from there. Here were the response rates by division. So a shout out for advancement with the highest percentage in division response rates. And here are the school response rates. So way to go, urban studies at 54%. As you know, Abby has gone over a few times what the schedule looked like. So this week we will be, Jillian and Abby will be presenting the results with Gallup to Cabinet on Wednesday. And then by April 18th, those results will be out on the website. After that, Gallup's going to be doing a major demo for all of our supervisors on their platform, and we'll begin to do our work on action plans across the campus. And then HR will be consulting with leadership and supervisors on those and providing support and guidance as necessary. So coming soon, just a plug for Tanya and the rest of the campus. You may have also heard about the UW-wide climate survey. That is going to launch on April 22nd, and it's open for 1 month. And everyone's invited to take that, and so stay tuned for further communication. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Anna and I just played rock, paper, scissors for who should be up here, and apparently I lost, right? Did I, though? No, kidding. This is an event of love and passion, so I love being up here sharing it with you. This will be our 3rd year of Husky Fest this year, so this is a campus-wide event. I always say it's like a little bit of a love letter to our campus, right? So the event itself is in combination with Admitted Students Day. So that starts the first part of the day We welcome all future Huskies, we hope, knock on wood, to come to our campus with their families and see what this campus is all about. So coordinating that with Husky Fest starting at 11 is really our time to shine and show the city off and the campus off. So what that includes is, 7 stage acts from high schoolers to the UW alumni band to our own college RSO groups performing. It also includes various food trucks such as Tacos Mary, Stacks, Bliss Ice Creamery, my personal favorite. It also includes just fun stuff, field games, face painting. All of our schools are present as well, so it's a great opportunity for not only the prospective admitted students, but also folks who have families with students or kids, I'm going to say that word loosely, kids in high school that are thinking about college and thinking about where to go. It's a great opportunity to show them what UW is all about. And I also have the pleasure of working with our colleagues throughout campus to work the event itself. That's why you see that Husky Fest volunteer form, a plug for you to spend the day with us and really get to interact with the students, interact with their families. And just so this group's know, we also partner with our Pacific Avenue partners. So a lot of people think that it's kind of confined to just all UW, but we work with Stocklist, Zeke's Pizza, who else am I missing? We work with the Smoothie Place, S-Level Teas. So just to name a few, and all the way down to Pacific and like Ninth, like a Pizza. So we do work with a lot of our downtown partners as a way to really welcome families to campus and show them what the downtown core is all about. So I hope you'll join us. If you're unable to volunteer or if you're not staffing a table, please come down and just see the event. Having people be there to clap and scream and holler when someone signs their confirmation, like, yay, they chose UW. Having people be there to clap and applaud and support the people who perform on our main stage, which is at TPS, makes a big difference. Having people who say, I work here and we support the students here and we support the faculty and staff here makes a big difference. So although this is our 3rd year, it's definitely not going to be our last year. We will continue to do this as our love letter to UW Tacoma, and I hope that you will continue to do it with us. So if you have any questions, please email me directly. Sign up to volunteer. You get an amazingly awesome shirt designed by our marketing team. It's mustard yellow. It'll look great on any person, let me tell you. But it also really will make you shine, right? Like, what a way to welcome our families and students to campus than with a bright t-shirt and say, we are here for you, right? We want you here. So I hope you'll join me in that. Thank you.